these questions that will come up tonight. I think the biggest thing is regret to start with. I think when you look at the appointment, I never believed anything like that could ever happen at our football club. It's something that will never leave me, if I'm being totally honest with you. Things that we've learned from or done differently, I think when we look at the process to hiring any individual, I think has significantly changed. I think when we look at the involvement, would say, from players relative to Kim's appointment, when you look at the involvement relative to the players of not just this football club but previous football clubs. You know, as an example, we spoke to multiple ex-players before hiring Kim to really delve into the background of what the player experience was under that coach. I think that's something we've continued with any future appointment around the whole organisation. Is there's a greater depth around, we say, that process, and that's probably the biggest thing that we've done throughout. I would say that process. In a situation like every organisation, you're going to seek legal advice and seek out legal counsel, and I think once that happens, as an employee of the organisation, you're going to follow legal advice, and that's ultimately what happened in that particular instance. I'm not an attorney. I'm not someone that has ever experienced anything like this ever. There were multiple people involved in that, and like every organisation in a situation like that, you're going to seek expert advice, and that was the advice that we were given.
And I think also our goal was to protect the wishes of the player and to do what the player involved had asked us to do. And I'm sure that individual, I cannot speak for her, was as bewildered and confused and not sure what to do about all of this as anybody else. So, you know, was it the right course of action looking back? No, right? Did we do what we were advised to do at the time? Yes, we did.
When the three players had come and complained, there were multiple topics that were discussed. Not one of those topics had anything to do with anything similar to the issue of why he ended up being fired. And I think the point I was trying to make was, in that particular meeting with the three players, there was myself, there was HR, then there was Gareth Bates who was involved, who helped develop multiple meetings after that with not just those three players, but all the players. And that phase was very much, as we saw it, as a trust building phase, where I've been through myself as a coach, is when you sit with players, there are new players, there are young players, there are old players, there are multiple things that are discussed. You're always trying to generate a relationship where you can build trust and you can form a winning mentality and you can finalise performance. And I think the point that we're trying to make is relative to that meeting. We felt at the time that meeting was best served by bringing everybody together and then having further weekly meetings with Gareth Bates around our cultural model. Our cultural model is PITCH, which is something that we developed along with Gareth, which stands for personal accountability, intellectually engaged, trust, commitment and humility. And this was something that the players were having on a weekly basis with Gareth around the forming of a culture. And the point we're trying to make is, in the forming of a brand new team, a brand new organisation, it's really important to develop trust. And that was something that everybody is trying to develop. And that was a big factor of why we continued to try to work along our cultural model with not just those three players, but with all the players, and try to get the staff with the players to work similarly to how Blue City did and the Academy does, and build meaningful relationships. My biggest thing in life is to develop meaningful relationships, and to do that, you need to be able to trust an individual. You need to be consistent in your behaviours. And I think that was the big point in trying to bring everybody together and to continue along with further dialogue to develop trust. We had young players that were coming from college that were mixing with older, more experienced players, relative to training, you had different opinions on training needs to be tougher, training should be harder. Some players coming from college not used to training every day. The exact same things can happen on the Lou City side. So people just need to remember that it was a brand new organisation with a brand new group of people that was still trying to establish a group dynamic. And the point we're making is there are different types of complaints. And there was a severe complaint that was made that was dealt with within 24 hours. And that would be the point that I think we were trying to get across. There's nobody trying to dodge anything or to swerve anything at all.
Almost anywhere we went, we were going to go with someone that was wanting a new challenge, wanting a new opportunity. So we conducted a number of interviews, looked at the resumes that came in, as well as going out on our own and talking to some people. We did settle on a candidate. Had everything have gone the way we wanted it to go, that candidate would have been here in December, right? Yeah, in December. Literally at the 11th hour, everything had been agreed upon, and something occurred that caused the candidate to change their mind. And that's the candidate's business, and we're going to leave it at that. So we started anew, and we have offered the position to an individual. That individual has accepted the position. They are currently employed elsewhere, and we can't really announce them until the background check and the other requisite things from the league are completed. But I expect that will happen next week. If not next week, early the following week, I would think, because the process has already begun. And based on this person's history, I would be shocked if something came up, or came out of the woodwork that we don't know about. But having had that happen to us once already, I guess, and I do just want to emphasize that this person was not her second choice. This person came as a result of the second search. But I feel really good about the experience of this individual, and probably equally or more importantly, this individual's experience in the women's game.
And if you Google Racing Louisville right now, you may get the regular page at first. You may get something about the NWSL. You scroll a couple more things, and all it's about is sexual abuse. Reports coming out. A coach did a terrible thing. I'm glad we fired him within 24 hours. But honestly, if we bring that up again, it's a moot point. He is gone, but I want to know what you all are doing right now to make sure that this never happens again. I know it happens all over the world. I know it happens in other sports. That's not a good club to be in. That's not great. So truly, I want you to think about how 1 in 6 women that I might give a ticket to doesn't want to come here. Not every sexual assault survivor is going to be okay with coming in this stadium. If I'm being very honest and transparent right now, I've been sexually assaulted in my life. This really hit a chord that we weren't protecting people. I care about these players more than I care about this stadium, more than I care about, whether the club leaves. I definitely don't want it to. But I want these players to be safe no matter where they are, and especially in my backyard.
I think we agree 100% with that. That said, right, and I say it with the utmost respect and humility, right? We're all human beings, and we cannot control every single thing that other human beings do, or it wouldn't be 1 in 6. All we can do is continue to strive to try to make it better and put the safeguards in place that hopefully prevent it. But secondly, if it does occur, that the individual affected is comfortable to speak up, and that we can swiftly and correctly deal with it.
Well, I think ultimately it's a great starting point. I don't think that the town hall went perfectly, but I do think that transparency that has not been there, that was a long time coming, was finally there. Were all the questions that we wanted to be answered? No. But again, I think that starting stuff like this is, I think the word trust was, brought up many, many times, and I do think that this is a small baby step into, rebuilding that trust.
What do you think the biggest thing is that people still need to hear or would like to know if they could get in?
I think ultimately it's, what actions are in place now. And I think right now, I don't want to say it's an unfair question because it's absolutely not an unfair question. I think right now we're waiting to see how players are feeling. Ultimately, one thing that I wish we maybe would have had tonight is, a player here, someone from the women's team. They're not in town, so obviously I knew that wasn't realistic. But once we hear from, technical staff on the women's team, players from the women's team, how confident they are and what changes they have seen, I think that is really where we're going to get our answers. Because I think, James and John can sit here as much as they can and be as transparent as possible, but, words are words, actions are actions. So I think ultimately if the players are happy and that's all we want to know, we will be happy, but season hasn't started yet, we don't know yet.
From a fan standpoint, how tough has all this been? Because this was kind of supposed to be a franchise that did it better, that treated these women better, that had better benefits, better conditions, better everything. And then for this to happen here, is especially stinging. What's it been like to go through that?
I mean, personally for me, it has been an absolute just whirlwind. It's been really difficult to deal with. I remember, I was there when racing was first announced, and I, helped form the, first supporters group for it. I believed in this club so, vehemently, and with all the meetings we had with the club, and you're right, like with, we have the best facilities, best, staff, best, everything. And yeah, for this to happen, it's been a real knock to my, trust issues that I feel like now we all have. Yeah, it's been extremely, extremely difficult. It's, there's a part of me that when I tell my friends, like, oh yeah, I started the supporters group for, Racing Louisville, now I kind of get like okay. So yeah, it's going to be a long road to, rebuild what people think of this club. But yeah, one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. So